Okay. Hey y'all, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's SMFC webinar. I have notes in front of me, which is why my gaze keeps shifting because I can't remember all of this. But welcome to our webinar, Family Medicine Fellow Panel, sharing our advice and insights to prepare for the Sports Medicine Fellowship match. It's going to be an incredible opportunity for resident and student members to learn from current and incoming fellows that have successfully matched. My name's Kimberly Burbank, and I'll be serving as the moderator for tonight's webinar. And I am also the outgoing fellowship class representative. It's been my honor to serve on the fellowship committee that's selected by fellowship committee leader at the beginning of each year. And super honored to be handing it off to Dr. Sonal Singh, who is on this call, and she'll introduce herself in a little bit. So, a little bit more about me. I'm the current UCLA, one of three current UCLA fellows. And I will be staying on as sports medicine faculty here at UCLA when I graduate in 2 weeks. And then residency I did at Wake Forest out in North Carolina, but home for me is Texas. For our 6 panel members, you don't have to do this, but if you want to share something like a fun fact, cool, let's do it. My fun fact is I had a veterinary pathologist friend growing up, and he needed help with a tiger necropsy at a zoo. So we went to his backyard in Texas and dissected a tiger. On that note, tonight we are honored to feature a family medicine speaker panel of 6 current and incoming fellows. And I'd like to introduce I'd like each member of our speaker panel to introduce themselves and say the name of their sports medicine fellowship program, either that you're currently a part of or that you're heading into, including the city and state where your fellowship program is located and where you completed your residency. So, residency, where it is, fellowship, where it is or where you're going, and then a fun fact if you want, but also no pressure on that. I'm just going to popcorn style call on Justin Chan. You want to start us off?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I went to Duke Family Medicine for residency and in Durham, North Carolina, and will be starting my fellowship at UNC Chapel Hill this upcoming year. I'll be one of 3 fellows. And a fun fact of mine is that tennis is the sport I grew up playing. I started when I was 2 years old.
Thanks. Thanks, Justin. Mia, can you introduce yourself? Chapman.
Hi, I'm Mia. I'm currently finishing up residency at Dublin Methodist Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, at Ohio Health, and I'm the incoming fellow at University of California, San Francisco. And my fun fact is that I'm a drummer. I got my first drum set when I was in 4th grade, and I've been playing ever since. And I love it. My neighbors don't love it so much, but that's okay. I have a good time.
Nice. Matthew Jorgensen, or Matt.
Hey guys, so I'm Matt. I'm at the University of Florida for residency right now in Gainesville, Florida, and I'm going to be the next fellow at University of Florida. Fun fact about me is I have a 2.5-year-old, and we are members at Disney, and we go, I swear, every 2 weeks. So that's our new thing together is we always go to Disney.
Oh, happy. That's so
Yeah.
fun. Next I have Swathi Muttana.
Hey, I'm Swathi. I'm currently finishing up my family medicine residency with Geisinger in Lewistown, PA. I'm going to be the incoming fellow at Penn State and State College. My fun fact is I'm a huge foodie, so I hope that I can explore new restaurants and places to grab coffee in the morning during fellowship as well.
Nice. Thank you. Love the foodie scene. And then we have Sonal Singh, if your audio is working, Sonal.
Hi, I hope you guys can hear me. My name's Sonal Singh. Thank you, Dr. Burbank, for that introduction. I'm finishing up a family medicine residency at Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, and I'll be following in Dr. Burbank's footsteps at UCLA as the incoming fellow in Los Angeles, California. My fun fact is I used to play a sport called kayak polo, which is basically water polo in kayaks. And I'm so sorry my camera's off, but I am driving. So I will try to turn it on as I can. Nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Sonal. And Sonal is incoming fellowship class rep as well. So y'all will be hearing and seeing a lot of her this year. Lastly, Idy.
Hi everybody, my name is Idy Udoeyop.
Idy, sorry.
I'm currently finishing up at Creighton University Family Medicine, and I'll be headed to University of Maryland in Baltimore and College Park, Maryland. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on this. Fun fact about me, I really got into golf really hooked now, and I'm going to be relocating to Maryland. So on that drive, I hope to play a course in every state that I cross.
Cool. That's awesome. That makes it more fun. Okay, I think that is everybody. Did I get everybody? That was a panelist. I think that was 6. Okay. So the format for tonight's webinar is primarily a question and answer session to give those attending the webinar a chance to ask questions to the family medicine panelists, so the 6 here, by entering their questions in the chat. Joan just put in the chat throughout the webinar. We'll start with a few preset questions that I have. And I'll ask each panelist to respond to, or if we get, a handful of y'all to respond to each question, that's great. And then I'll open it up for our Q&A segment that I'll moderate with questions that have been entered in the chat from those attending tonight's webinar session. Our intent is to go about an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with those on the panel. So looking back on your journey, what do you believe were the most important factors that helped you successfully match into a sports medicine fellowship?
I could start. So I guess one of the most important factors, I would say just a wide breadth of sports coverage on the CV, because that's something that I wasn't necessarily surprised by, but I was surprised by how little I was asked about like research and more asked about my experiences covering. And of course, when covering, of doing as much as possible as well. So that's and taking as much out of each learning opportunity. So I would say having a nice like long and longitudinal relationship with athletes and teams, and as well as diverse experiences as well.
I agree with that. I had kind of said the same thing that the breadth and depth of your sideline event coverage is going to be really important. I feel like it's really powerful during interviews too, because you can use those opportunities to talk about what you learned, showcase some of your knowledge, and really just show that you're ready to be a fellow. And it also gives your letter writers a lot to say about you, and having strong letters that talk about all the coverage that you've done, and having somebody be able to say they trust you to run those events on your own really goes a long way when it comes to that interview.
I'll just piggyback and add to that. Like, just because, if you're applying this year, your applications are due soon, keep doing the activities that you've already been doing in terms of sideline coverage and others throughout, like fellowship, throughout the application season, because you can even talk about some of those new opportunities during interviews. And I will also add that your connections, I think for me specifically, are something that I really hold near and dear to my heart and really helped me throughout the fellowship process. So reaching out to all the connections that you've made at AMSSM through other opportunities and avenues, and keeping them keeping in communication throughout this whole process is also really helpful.
I also found that doing some away rotations was really helpful. Like I did 2 2-week rotations with my incoming fellowship and absolutely loved it. So I think just rotating around in different areas and getting to know them and they get to know you as well, I think was super helpful. Then finding a mentor pretty early was something that I found extremely helpful. So they gave me some good advice on how to prep my application early and be ready for fellowship when the time came.
Yeah, and just to add on that too, especially for people who don't have a home sports medicine program, um, don't forget to, reach outwards out of the community, and just finding even a local orthopedic surgeon and just asking if they cover any high school or at any level really. And then another thing to that is really the continuity of it for some of the people in the younger years. Focus on covering multiple games in the same season with the same team, and start thinking of good stories to have for interviews. So really, really journal like how your experience was at these games, and just have some key memorable events that happened during each game that you've covered or practice, or whether it was pre-participation um, coverage or physical. Sorry.
Awesome insights, y'all. Thank y'all for sharing.
Can I
One
add one
thing
more
I'll
thing
add.
actually
Oh,
to that?
oh, sorry,
Sorry.
Matt.
No, you're good. You're good. I think the other thing too, like aside from the sports experience, is you want to show that you're well-rounded. And so like one thing that you can do is talk about leadership. I think that was something that was definitely brought up in a lot of interviews. to show that you're good in a team setting. And I mean, that's sports medicine is you're working with the ATs, the PTs, like all this different team members. So you want to show that not only do you have the experience in sports, but you have an experience working with large groups and teams.
Thank y'all. Those were awesome, comprehensive answers. And one thing I will say too, I know that there's kind of a wide breadth of research that we do in family medicine residency and opportunities with that. I think kind of being in the rank meeting side of things, showing up with at least having like a case, something that just shows that you are capable of completing a research task during your fellowship year is important because that's one of our ACGME requirements. And so that's the one thing I'll tag on to everyone is you don't have to love it, but you do have to do it to a certain extent. And so if you can show you've done something, it doesn't have to be extensive. That can be super helpful. I'm going to ask another one and then we'll start diving into the chat around like 5:20 p.m. or wherever y'all are in the country. I don't know what time it is there. Okay, another one for the panelists. How did you balance your clinical responsibilities, your research, your sports coverage, your leadership activities, and personal life while doing all these things that y'all just talked about while you're, building this competitive application? How'd y'all do it?
I can chime in. I think kind of pacing yourself with the coverage can be helpful. Like I know fall tends to be heavy on the football, but like doing other things throughout the year, like little things here and there, like Special Olympics, little community events, and that type of thing can be helpful for that. I'm a chief resident in my program, and honestly, that never stops. Like you're always gonna have to do that around the clock. But those are kind of my insights to it.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what Swati said and say, I think the first thing is acknowledging it's hard. We all know it's hard. It's okay to acknowledge that and accept that it's going to be challenging. It's probably going to be, especially if you're applying, a very challenging year to even do interviews and all that. But at the end of the day, I think doing your best to keep all of your obligations organized and scheduling in time for yourself to even have those personal moments or those moments of wellness so that you can remind yourself to take that break. And if you're like really like, run dry, but you're supposed to cover an event, it's okay to reach out to whoever you were supposed to cover with and say, I've been doing as much as I can, but I really don't think I can extend myself that far. So it's okay to say no when you feel like you've really kind of, hit a wall with things, but do as much as you can. Know that it's okay to be tired during the process, but at the same time, kind of keep a schedule where you keep that time for yourself as well, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I could add to that. One thing I want to start by saying is focus on really becoming the best family medicine doctor first. And I think prioritizing your clinical duties should always come first. I know it sounds cliche, but always remember patient care and why we're into this in the first place. Mentorship is key. I think having mentors at each different level, like a few years ahead of you, that have gone through this, and just to ask them questions is very important. But like what the other two said, it is very challenging, especially if you're chief or have other clinical or leadership roles within residency. Really have a timeline of events you want to cover. I know some things could be spontaneous or you get asked to do things last minute. Remember, it's okay to say no also. The fall will be very busy and it's just mapping everything out. But you still want to, like, people will know your passion. Just want to reiterate that. But remember, you're a resident first at the end of the day.
Yeah, with how busy it gets, it's definitely important to do things that you care about. So, like Dr. Burbank said, yes, check that box for the ACGME requirement of showing that you can do a research project in some capacity. But if you don't like research otherwise, and it's not something you're looking for in fellowship, then don't spend a lot of your time doing research. Do projects that interest you. Find creative ways to, either cover sports that are more interesting to you because you can talk about those coverage opportunities more. If you like, I did a lot of like simulation design for sports medicine and sports, athletic training, teaching. And so you can combine different interests and figure out unique ways to do that. But mentorship and just kind of planning ahead are going to be really key factors in that for sure.
All right, y'all. Thank you for those insightful answers. I'm actually going to go ahead and dive into the chat now. We're having some awesome questions being asked in the chat. And so what I'll do is, and attendees, please keep sending in your questions, and we're going to get to as many of them as possible. And so just keep putting them in the chat. You don't need to raise your hand. I'll just read them off to the group. And then some of these questions will be more applicable to some than others. So just answer as best you see fit. I will start with Ramya's. ERAS gives 10 sections for hobbies or chances to prove the interest in sports medicine. Did you end up filling out all 10 sections, or what were your 10 sections? Which sections did you feel proved most helpful in your candidature?
Yeah, I would say definitely try to fill all 10. It's your chance to really show yourself on paper. Kind of like everyone's been saying, the longitudinal coverage, kind of a unique coverage that goes a long way, but then also showing that you're well-rounded. Like Idy said, Idy, which one is it? Idy, okay. Like Idy said, they want to see that you're also a good family medicine physician. And if you can show that through your application where yes, you're interested in sports. Yes, you excel in sports, but you also can excel in what you're doing. And in terms of like leadership positions, volunteering in the community, showing that not only do you want to be a sports medicine physician, but you also are a great family medicine physician. So, for me, one thing was leadership. So I'm also a chief. They really like that, but also like mission trips. My wife and I go mission trips to Haiti. And just something like that has nothing to do with sports. It definitely had a lot of attention during interviews, just kind of learning about what I'm passionate about and what I care about.
Yeah, going off that, I would say that you guys have done a lot. Like if you're at the point of finishing residency, you definitely have like 10. And it's just a matter of thinking very deeply back about all the things you've done. It could be like a small leadership position in med school that could be relevant. There's one quick example is one a group I was one of the co-presidents of in med school was for like innovation entrepreneurship. I put that on because it was some I could make it somewhat relevant to sports medicine, but like almost half of the places I interviewed at asked me about that experience. So it's like something that you wouldn't think is really exactly relevant to sports medicine, that you may have done even before med school. It could be relevant if you can draw out the relevant skills that they're looking for. As people have already said, leadership, community engagement, whether it's engaging with athletics, engaging with the community, or just any of the things that we know that sports medicine programs care about. If you've demonstrated that in some sort of activity throughout your life, then feel free to put that.
That's such great feedback. The only thing I'll add is if you've done a lot of a similar activity, like say you've done multiple types of, PPEs for different high schools or different, colleges, it's okay to also group them into one category. And if you want to get all those experiences in that way, you can do that for various opportunities as well.
Okay, thank y'all. Let's dive into the next question. So this is from Lorena, and the main question is she is not allowed to rotate outside her program, and her program does not offer sideline coverage. Saying this, have any of you encountered the situation, and what have you done to overcome this obstacle? They've personally covered on days off, on post-call days, combat sports, boxing, Muay Thai, all these different things. However, longitudinal coverage can be hard. So what is your advice to either figuring out how to get longitudinal coverage or what you did instead of that? Or have any of you experienced that?
I will mention first about the away rotations. I definitely can, sense how you feel because I also was not allowed to do away rotations. And I will say that programs understand that. So if there's programs that you're really interested in, communicating that with them is definitely something that you can do. But also, you can also mention it during, your interview process or any of that. But programs understand that there are certain GME requirements that don't allow you to rotate. So that's definitely not something that will hold you back. So I wouldn't worry too much about that for that regard. And then in terms of getting more longitudinal experiences, it is hard, especially if that's not something that's readily available for you. If there's any way you can find out if there's other physicians going out in the community and covering any other high schools, but they're not affiliated with your program, you don't have to be the only physician on that sideline. You can go with them, shadow. The idea is about just getting that experience and exposure. So definitely tagging yourself onto any high schools in the area would be a good place to start, but also any other groups, even private sports medicine groups that cover any sports. But again, if you can't get the longitudinal experience, for example, doing something like Special Olympics multiple times, over a certain amount of years is also longitudinal, even though it's like an event. It shows dedication to that organization. Hopefully that's helpful.
I will add on to that kind of from the other side of things when ranking. It's totally understood that some programs have more exposure to coverage than others. And so just like Sonal was saying, if you can create an opportunity, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a high school that you were able to show up on that sideline for a couple of times to create a longitudinal experience. That goes so far in the ranking and in kind of in your application because it shows how much initiative you had to take and how dedicated you were, and you showed it in a different way than covering a lot of different sports, if that makes sense. So there's definitely a role to just trying to get on the sideline, though definitely harder said than done sometimes. Easier said than done. Okay, diving to the next one. What are some of the more common questions you were asked during interviews that maybe you weren't expecting?
I can take this one. Something I encountered in most of my interviews was like, what practice would I like to see myself doing in the future? Like, do I want to do fully sports? Do I want to do some FM with it? And that's something I wasn't really expecting until I heard it the first time. And truthfully, at that point, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do more sports than FM. But I did say I wanted to do a little bit of everything, like coverage procedures and just seeing a broad patient panel.
Yeah, to go off that 100%, that really caught me off guard. It was almost every interview was like, what's your 5-year plan? Like, where do you see yourself? And that can be hard for us because, you're just trying to get into the fellowship. But having an idea of that when you're going into the interview to say, like, here's what I'm passionate about, here's why I want to do it, definitely helps. And that's where, getting connected with the mentors, getting the experience can help you answer those questions. But that's definitely one, the 5-year and 10-year plan.
And one thing I got actually 3 times, it's kind of interestingly, was teach me something. And that was really hard actually, because you think about, all right, I can't teach them anything medicine wise. I can't teach them anything sports medicine wise. So you have to think about, that kind of forces you to think outside of medicine, about outside of the thing you've been training to do for the past, however many years. So have something like that just shows your outside interests. So one of my friends who got that question talked about how to make the specific coffee that, he learned from, his parents. And so you could just think of like something outside of medicine that you can teach them. And it also shows how good you are at teaching. So that question kind of tackles 2 things. So I can see why they asked it, but that definitely caught me off guard, especially I got that question 2 times in the same day. So I had to think of a second thing after I got it the first time. So yeah, definitely have that one ready.
Some big ones that for sure came up, like they said, your plan, your 5-year plan. Other ones, of course, why our program? And I think a big one was just honestly them asking us, what questions do you have for us? That one was really prominent, and people just really asked that a lot. And I think that's just to gauge really your interest in them. And these interviews did feel more conversational. So it was a lot of the times a conversation starter for many of them.
Yeah, I agree. I got asked all of those questions. I think another one that I got a few times was which AMSSM committee most interests you? And I didn't even know all the committees, and I was like, oh boy. So that one was kind of tough right out of the gate. And then they asked some personality questions, like what's your favorite movie? And then all profound movies like immediately jump out of your head, and you can only think of the dumbest movie you saw. And but it's fine, and you can laugh and you can share those types of things. They're just trying to get to know you as people. But yes, so many interviews are going to ask, what questions do you have for us? You should go in with long lists of questions. You can ask the same question to different interviewers. If you're out of questions, just try to have something and to get to know the program a little bit better, because it is an opportunity to showcase that you have done your research, but also you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. And you really do want to find the place that feels like a good fit.
Oh, such good. Yeah, all the questions got asked. The only thing I'll add is that obvious question, which is basically your 1 to 2 minutes, sometimes three, if you're getting really into it, elevator pitch on literally who are you and why do you want to do sports medicine? You will get asked that multiple times a day by every single program. So having not a overly rehearsed, but like at least the key points that you want to touch upon in terms of showcasing your personality, your journey, and what inspires you and keeps you passionate about sports medicine will help you start that interview strong and then kind of keep the momentum going.
Thank y'all. Those were incredible answers. 10 out of 10. Next one is how important were mentorship and networking in your fellowship application process, and how did you go about developing or finding appropriate mentors who can actually vouch for you in your fellowship application LOR?
One thing that I've been telling people is um, to be like not like strategically, but it was more incidental that I found that being really close with athletic trainers was actually huge. And because people think like, oh, who's the doc on the sideline? Who do I need to talk to? But not really. Like the athletic trainers are the ones who know the athletes the most because they're the real like pretty much on the sideline primary care providers for the athletes. They know all of them. They know their personalities. They know all their whole injury history. But like working with them really closely, and that was just a natural thing I did. They ended up speaking highly for me on my behalf to the docs, who then wrote that in my rec letter and literally like copy and pasted quotes from the athletic trainers for me. And I didn't, that was not unintentional, it just happened. But the athletic trainers are like not only can teach you a ton, but they can mentor you and they can, advocate for you as well. So I would say like don't just think about the docs, think about the whole, again, it's a team sport. So think about everyone who's, helping the athletes.
Yeah, that was perfect, by the way. So to go off what Justin said, like the ATs, man, like I'll be honest, I use an AT letter, and a lot of programs highlighted that because it shows that, a lot of these interviews you'll see are almost like a sideline test. They want to see how you interact with the whole team, the nursing staff, the coordinators. They want to see how you're interacting with the team. And so if you can get a letter from like a well-respected AT to show like, hey, I've been around all these different team docs, and this doc was great. He was there, he was accountable, he was easy to work with. I think that can go a long way. So focusing on the ATs is huge.
A lot of times in your interviews, an AT will be part of that interview team also, and that's really important. And so being able to develop those good relationships and recognize that you and the AT have different roles on the team, but you will be working together and you have to work harmoniously. And they bring so much value and they know a lot more than you, especially when you're starting fellowship. So they are a wealth of knowledge. There's a ton to be said about mentorship that everybody's been touching on, and I think that's just it is so important to have good mentors. Don't be afraid to just reach out to people on the AMSSM website. You can reach out to any of us, I'm sure, as well. One thing that I found helpful was with my letter of recs, I was intentional about who I chose. And then I asked them to highlight different parts of my application based on the relationship I had with them. And I didn't limit them and say, only talk about this, but I would say, hey, if you could talk about this one key aspect, that would be really helpful for me, but don't feel obligated. So be intentional about as many aspects of your application as you can, and try to get people that are going to speak to that sports knowledge, having that team physician that you worked with longitudinally, having a sports letter, like those are great, but have somebody who talks about whatever fun interests you had outside of that, somebody who can speak to the quality of you as a leader, as a chief resident, or in your program, as your, family med skills and clinical skills. So those are all really important things that can be highlighted in very meaningful ways from the attendings.
All right, awesome. Those are some hot takes, guys. Good insight. For those trying to do sideline coverage outside of their residency program, how did you navigate professional liability or malpractice insurance coverage in that setting? Did any of you have any experience with that? Okay, it's kind of niche. I had a little bit of an experience with that. I'll answer it from the fellowship standpoint. I was working with USA Basketball, and we had never had a fellow do that before. And so basically, I just had to go up through like your program coordinator, and I don't know the specifics of your residency, but they just had to get this approval through the higher ups that said that my liability coverage at this institution counted, so to speak, at an away institution. And so I don't know if that's applicable or if a high school would accept that based on your residency malpractice insurance.
Yeah,
Just some.
we did something similar. So at US program, we tried to start covering club sports. Um, the advice I give is you really got to start early because it's a long process. It's really not through us, it's more of the administration. Showing interest and being pressing on it is helpful, but just know it's not going to be a quick turnaround. They got to go through all the paperwork. It'd probably be a couple months, but it's possible.
Okay. Hey, Natasha. Natasha's asking, what is the best way to make connections with away rotations, and how early should you reach out to see if they have spots, or how did y'all that did away rotations, how did y'all go about doing that?
I can answer this one. So I reached out to programs that were near where I am right now. So I live in Central PA, so there's a couple Geisinger programs which are my institution currently, and then I reached out to some of the Penn State institutions as well. So I did State College in Hershey, and then I was able to rotate with them. I reached out probably between 6 months to a year before I wanted to actually rotate with them. I know that that can vary depending on your institution itself. Mine recommended 9 to 12 months before I was actually able to go do the elective so they could process their paperwork. But I'll just kind of blindly email the program director and just say, I'm so and so. I'm at this institution currently interested in sports, and then would send my CV and they would get back to me.
The only thing I'll add to that is for people who are not allowed to rotate, I don't know, this is probably like case by case basis, but there is an opportunity maybe if you message programs that you're really interested in to see if they will allow you to come and do what they call like an observership for a week. Now, you would probably have to take your own vacation time. So, not sure if that'll be interesting for you to do, but you can go potentially for a week. The only problem is you can't really like touch patients and do a lot of hands-on activities, but there's a lot that can be done not hands-on in terms of course, meeting the program, faculty, the program director, chatting about patient care and kind of just getting to know the environment. So that might be an option, but again, I would just email the program and see if that's something that they offer. And it would be called like an observership in that sense.
I'll add to this briefly. Timing wise, at least here at UCLA, we'll take mostly PGY3s, but some PGY2s. And so, as like on their away rotation. And so for me, I was like starting to think about it at the end of intern year, but then really didn't start making moves until second year to try to get in an away rotation during interview type season. But totally agree with Sonal. So much of your away rotation is just like how you're interacting with the people and are you a good fit for it. Definitely encourage you to do it if you're able to, because then as much as they're getting a good look at you, you're getting a good look at them. So definitely agree with Sonal on that. Thank you. Any others do away rotations? Perfect. We'll go to the
Yeah,
next. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I did. I also tried to do away rotations at other places, but the institution, depending where you are, the legal department of your institution may block it. So definitely start like at least half a year before you want to go, because who knows how much will need to get done. And my program director actually got in trouble for me reaching out to a program to like get it connected by our legal department. So it's like you may not be able to get it done, but at least try early. That's just the only thing I can recommend.
Okay. Katarina asks, what do you think made you stand out during application season besides longitudinal sports coverage? As I imagine, most applicants have put many hours in this area of their application. So what did y'all feel like helped you be unique?
So I think this is a tough one because it really comes down to what interests you and what you're passionate about. And so once you are able to figure out whether that's something you're actively doing right now, so Matt mentioned that he did mission trips, and those are types of things that are very outside the realm of sports, but can be, you can talk a lot about those in an interview. I had a lot of interest in lifestyle medicine and in pursuing board certification. So people like to hear about that and how I plan to use that in my future, or about some of the simulation and training stuff. And those are things that I'm passionate about is education. And so I feel like being able to tie those things that were parts of my application into my career goals, or just how I enjoy those aspects and what they do for me as far as just like personal fulfillment. I think it really does show that you are passionate about something, and people can tell when you're passionate, and that really makes you shine in ways outside of just your sports knowledge. So I know that's not the best answer, but it is really individual, and you just have to kind of figure that out and talk to one of your mentors, talk to one of us, and figure out how to kind of share that in a meaningful way during interview trail.
Gosh, really, that was the best answer. No, that is so true. It really is what it comes down to in terms of your passions. So another example is like or unlike Amelia, my big passion is also advocacy. So I talked a lot about some of the advocacy work that I've done, but anything like that that you do that you're really passionate about, whether it is related to sports medicine or whether it's not. Another interview question that often gets asked is, all these things that you've done on your application, what's something that's really stood out to you? Tell me about that experience. And that's something that you can use to really set yourself either apart or highlight kind of something that really excites you. And so again, it's very like case by case dependent, but those are some examples, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I think a question you'll get is like, what are you most proud of? And if when we're talking about like passion, you'll be able to speak about it in the interview. Like you want to pick something that's truly passionate. Like you want to do self-reflection. And if it's not associated with sports medicine, that's okay. You want to be able to really sell it in terms of like how passionate you are, and it shows your drive and it shows how you approach different things. So, don't just list something that's unique. You want to make sure that you're truly passionate about it because they'll be able to sense it in the interview if it's like, yeah, this person really cares about this. They can read through that. So you want to make sure you pick something that's real.
Yeah, that's echoing off of what everyone else said. Yeah, they can definitely tell, yeah, when something is like done in a checklist manner, when it's just like, oh, I did this just because I'm supposed to, or I did this because other people are. But like, if your application, especially your personal statement, I think your personal statement, don't ignore that. Like, work on that for months to make sure it is like perfect. Not perfect, but it ties everything together. Like, it ties all your experiences together. It ties all your volunteer and your activities, and your whole application just should be like pointing in one direction. So just, yeah, ensuring that, like, yeah, as everyone said, have that passion, or have a theme, and that kind of brings it tells a whole picture when someone reads your application, instead of like just seeing individual separate experiences.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's saying. Um, really great points, honestly. I think to add to that really is just continuing things even you used to do back in undergrad, high school, and then they're starting to see that theme. We all love sports, but there's things that we could be doing outside of sports medicine related to sports, whether that's coaching, whether that's community work, and tying that into your future goals. Like I said, that question of where do you see yourself in 5 years, it's not just for practice. I think a good way of answering that is also you as a person, what you want to do. We're family medicine, so a lot of that is with the community too, and sports and community go hand in hand. So they like to see that, and it's good talking points also.
Awesome. Thank y'all. From Ramya, I see some of the members in the panel do have somewhat of a presence on Google or social media. How important has that been to matching into fellowship? Was that important? Did that ever come up for any of y'all, your social media? Perfect, same. And I honestly don't think, I'm thinking back to rank, like social media didn't come up near as much, like people's social media, as we thought it would. I think just in general, right, having the social media etiquette, that knowing what you're putting out there can be used for you or against you. And so just being conscientious with that, um, as we all hopefully are. And then, um, Vanessa, I'm going to ask your question kind of at the end. That's like an awesome tying up question with another one. So I have two more, one or two more, depending on the timing. Um, Questions for the panel. How did y'all determine which programs were the best fit for you, and what factors ultimately influenced your rank list? Again, pretty individualized question, but just some thoughts from y'all.
I think kind of it goes into what we've been saying, where one, if you have a mentor that can kind of help guide you in terms of what your career goals are and how to get to them. Like for me, one thing I'm interested in is being like an Olympic physician or things like that, and how to kind of get that network early on. It helps you, one, answer the 5-year question, two, when you're going into the interview, understanding of like, does this place have the resources for me to be able to do that? I think we said it earlier, but truly it's different than residency because they are trying to sell themselves to you. Yes, you're interviewing, but they're trying to see, are you the good fit for them? So for me, it was more like, what are the resources they've had? Look at the previous fellows of who've matched and where they're at. And then also the culture. I think that was a big thing for me. We've done, I don't know about y'all, but it was like mainly in person. There were a couple Zooms, but I would recommend to anyone, and I tell all like the upcoming residents this, that if you have like a top 5 and it's Zoom, I would still try to make a trip out there so you can like see the culture of the place, not through the screen, but kind of walk around, get the vibe of how the whole team connects. And I think it makes a big difference. So for me, it's like the culture of the program, and then also what resources do they have to make it so you can get where you want to go for your career. So it's kind of individualized.
I agree. It is really individual. Some of the common things that will come up that you'll see, or things that you can think about, is what level of athletic coverage you want. Are you looking for primarily high school? Are you looking for a mixture of high school and college? What level of college? Remember, if you're getting into really high-ranking D1 college athletics, that might be a lot more limited for hands-on times with the athletes. And those are important questions to ask, how much access you're actually going to get to sideline coverage. Like, am I standing on the sideline or am I co-managing? Am I actually doing it? So that's an important thing. If you don't want to do D1 athletics, you might be better served getting a lot more exposure to a D2 or D3 school, or some programs have multiple levels of coverage. I know University of Maryland had a ton of different ones, which was really cool. So think about the level of coverage you want to do. If you can get exposure to pros and you're interested in that, procedural skill competency and how much time you're able to get hands-on ultrasound, how many ultrasound guided injections the fellows are doing, if you're interested in that. And then Boomy, if you want, I like research, so research opportunities were big for me. But honestly, when it came down to making the rank list, you'll put things in bubbles as far as like, I felt really good about these programs because they checked all these boxes. I felt really good about these ones, or these were missing a few things. And that's kind of how you overall structure your rank list. And then just write down how you felt on the interview day. There are some interviews you just felt, wow, this place feels like home, and that feels really good. And so write down those types of things after your interviews, because it's hard to remember the way that you felt, but that is really an important factor at the end of the day. And then you can always reach back out to programs and ask them follow-up questions if there's something you learn later that you want to know more about.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. The only other thing I'll add is first kind of trying to figure out as much as possible. Of course, you haven't done your year of fellowship, but what kind of sports medicine physician do you want to be? Do you want to work in academics? Do you want to work in private practice and do more procedural sports medicine? So, whatever that looks like, look for programs where either that's what they offer or their fellows have gone into those types of positions. So, you know, at least that that program's preparing you via their current fellows for the type of environment that you want to practice in. And then it's always okay to reach out to the fellows, ourselves included eventually, but then also prior fellows, and talk to them about how well supported they felt they were in terms of coming up with that kind of career options, guidance, job opportunities. All of that will help as well.
One other thing that I've been trying to like caution people is that I don't know how other people felt when they interviewed, but I feel like a lot of places are interview, especially when the places have like one spot, they interview as like a formality, but they're not like actually seriously considering anyone they're interviewing because there's already like 2 people in their program who are already interested in going to their program. So just when making your rank list, just be aware of that like, it's probably don't like put the place that has a one slot on super high on your list if you don't really have that great of a relationship with them. I would say just like know that it is a match. So no, we've already done match, but like, if you have a really good relationship with people with a certain faculty at certain program, then that is very, very important. That's more important than some, how well you may have connected on the interview day. So just, yeah, just thinking about how they may go through the rank pro or the rank list process, that they don't have unlimited spots either. So just yeah, just be thoughtful regarding like who may rank you highly.
To add on to this, so important factors for ranking, um, really coverage was a big part for me personally, and the levels of coverage. Um, that being said, you want to get that exposure, and for your future career, like the other two said, it's really important to get that at the fellowship level, and really looking at the alumni and what they're doing in the future. And a lot of that information is out there, whether it's a Google search, LinkedIn search, and really just asking alumni what their trajectory looked like and the preparation for the job market. Another thing is if fellows are staying on afterwards, if it's a geographic location you're interested in, that's a big factor too. But from that standpoint, this is a year where you want to get the most exposure to the things you're interested in your career.
Wonderful answers, y'all. Thank you. And we have time for one or two more before our final. So Amir is asking about procedure logs and if y'all found that those came up during interviews, specifically regarding sports med related procedures such as ultrasound or joint injections. Were any of y'all asked about those on your interviews?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's once again, if you have shown that you have a passion about it, that was one of my passions, I'd say. So prior to med school, I was actually an ultrasound tech. And so going in, I knew like I love this. I love the diagnostics. I love the ultrasound guided procedures. So I really focused on that and tried to hone in on that during my training to where I could really show like, hey, I've done it all. Like I have good numbers. I really want to jump in, like start running from the ground when I hit fellowship. I think they definitely like that. I think if you show that you have the passion and you showed that you took the effort to get more numbers of it, that yeah, it will make you stand out. And that's still something you can talk about though. Like if you don't have a ton of numbers, but that's something you're interested in, and once again, like you can talk about it like you're interested, they'll like that.
Yeah, I agree completely. So I didn't have firm numbers like that I was asked in my interviews or anything, but I was able to speak to the volume of procedures I did. And for me, I've done a lot of ultrasound, but I haven't done a lot of ultrasound guided procedures. So I could tell faculty and during interviews, like, yeah, I've genuinely only done 3 ultrasound guided procedures, but that's a really important thing that I'm looking for in training, and this is why. And so as long as you can tie it into where you want to go with it and that it's something that you care about and are passionate about, especially if it's something like procedural training that's relevant to sports medicine, they're not going to fault you for not having that exposure and that experience because it just works out that way sometimes. And so if you do have firm numbers, objective data is always going to be really great. But if not, maybe just prep your answer a little bit more and have ideas of how to tie that in because you will inevitably be asked about it.
Perfect. And then lastly, and this can be more of a range, if anyone feels comfortable sharing it as much as what numbers roughly applications, like how many y'all are applying to this year? Or that y'all saw other people applying to, or was that a common thing, or is it super variable by person? My year is super variable, obviously. I mean, it's very, very individualized based on your experience.
I think yeah, it's variable. I think this is too where if you have a good mentor that's kind of involved in AMSSM, understands the other program directors and such, where they can kind of read your application and they'll give you advice of like, hey, I think you should kind of shoot for this number versus this number. I think 20 to 30, I think was a good number for a lot of people in my year. I don't know about y'all, but I kept hearing around that number. But it varies. I think you should talk to your mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sonal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I ended up being around 25, maybe 27 when I got stressed. And then I think typically you'll get about half of the interviews. If obviously you guys are all amazing people and you've done a lot of good things. So you can kind of use that as a gauge. And then as you go through interviews, if you feel like a lot of them have gone really well, you don't necessarily have to go to all the ones that you're offered. But, it can also be a good opportunity to, again, broaden your circles and get to know more people. So if you can take the time off and go to the interviews, it's a good way to learn about a program you may not have known about, but also network as well. So I would say, yeah, when I was looking at the metrics, I think it was around 15 interviews was kind of an average. Someone can check me on that though, to make sure you get hopefully a good match.
I was seeing similar things. I definitely over applied and over interviewed, and that was because I didn't know geographically where I wanted to be. So, if you know there's a location you want to be, you can be very intentional about your interviews and about your application. And if you know there's somewhere geographically you're like, I'm never going to go there, don't waste your time. I had a lot of different interests and was looking for something new. And so I definitely applied broadly. And then there were some interviews that I was like, I wish I had looked at this a little bit more. I probably might not have done this because it doesn't suit exactly what I'm looking for. So you can save yourself a lot of time if you're intentional. And even if you over apply, you don't have to over accept the interviews either. You can also pare it down and say no, as long as you're doing so within the confines of what they ask you, and just be flexible with your scheduling too. Sometimes you'll get interviews late offers, and sometimes things will open up and you can get pulled off wait lists. That is important to be available as well.
Awesome. All right, we're wrapping it up. So I just want to give an opportunity to the six panelists. Um, any final advice briefly or takeaway for these that are about to apply for the sports medicine fellowship, and kind of tying in Vanessa's question, last minute tips before they send out their applications in a month? What word of advice do you have briefly?
Man, well, have fun. One, like enjoy the process. You're gonna look back and be like, man, that was awesome. I can't remember who said it earlier, but like you'll be in these interviews and you're gonna be at the end of it and be like, wow, like that was incredible. And it's a place you never had thought you'd end up. So kind of be open, definitely take your notes of each program. And it kind of kept hitting, but make sure you have that self-reflection of like your 5-year plan. What are you passionate about? Because that will really help you, one, rank your programs because you know it will be good for you. Two, do well in interviews because you know what you're passionate about. And then three, in terms of any question on interviews, they will definitely be asking about what are you passionate about? What is your 5-year program? So if I could say like of something to focus on, it's a personal statement and your like passions and 5-year plan.
I agree completely with all of that. One thing I wish I did a little bit better was even after long interview days, the last thing I wanted to do was write down some of the positive things or negative things I saw about the program. I just wanted to kind of like dissociate for a little bit after so many hours on a screen or in person. Just make yourself do it, put it all in a centralized area so that you're not searching through paper notes and trying to figure out, what you liked or didn't like about programs. That's just going to make your life easier come rank list time. And then um, it can be a really fun experience. I really had a lot of great times connecting with all of the faculty at different programs. That so many people are very interesting and have fun, unique stories. And so just have fun and enjoy it. And then if you are not a strong writer, find a strong writer and have them read every piece of your application. This is not a time to be shy. It's good to get that feedback. And so make sure that your application has been reviewed thoroughly by other people too, that you trust.
I will agree with all of that. And I will say, once again, have fun. It is probably such an exciting time to visit different places, meet different people. Not only are you networking with all the people that are interviewing you, but you're networking with each other. These are my future colleagues here in sports medicine. I'm so honored to be a part of this group. And I recognize a lot of people from the interview trail. So truly, I know it's a lot of work. You're going to be stressed out. Can't get away from that, but have a lot of good fun with it too.
Yeah, these interviews, they're a lot different from residency interviews. Give yourself a pat on the back, honestly, when you get them and making it this far, honestly. One thing is just being authentically yourself, really and truly. A lot of these interviews were just conversational stories about your experiences. The other applicants you're talking to, you have a lot of downtime with them and also the fellows. So really start writing down how you feel. Um, that just goes a long way. And congrats to everybody, honestly, and best of luck.
All right. Anyone else? We good? Okay.
Sorry, one
Just
last
oh,
sorry,
thank you.
one last
Go
thing.
ahead.
I actually was thinking about on ERAS, some programs that accept Family Med, for example, they may not be under the Family Med like department, with the category. Look under like PEDS or look under PM&R. Sometimes it's like it's weird. You have to find them because I thought like, oh, I guess they didn't, you know, they're not accepting applicants right now or whatever. But it turns out it's just in a different like category on ERAS. So just look, if you can't find the program initially, look at different departments, and then you may be able to find them there. Because that's, I think, like an easy way you can like miss a program on your rank list. So that's future down the line, but just something to keep in mind.
No, great advice. I think HSS was hidden under PEDS or something. Um, Okay, y'all. Thank y'all so much to the six panelists for spending an hour of y'all's busy schedules with us tonight. Thank you for all of the attendings that came to hear a little bit about what these excellent individuals have to share. And all of these have been recorded. These sessions have been recorded and are going to be uploaded to the AMSSM YouTube channel. It's been my pleasure serving as the moderator for this Family Med session. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight's SMFC webinar. Everyone's putting their email addresses and contact information, so reach out and let us know if you have any other questions down the line. Thank y'all.